Hello everyone, I'm Mark Olsen, I run movies for the Los Angeles Times, and please join me in welcoming to the stage, Vicky Krieps.
I always screw up everything technical, and I break all technical devices, so maybe this will break.
I know, Vicky, since we just finished watching the movie, I hope you wouldn't mind saying something about the ending, that final leap. What does that mean to you?
I mean, the ending is, of course, not real. That's not what happened, and it's an imaginative way to have her free herself. I think the whole movie is about someone being stuck in her time and trying to get free when it's almost not possible. And it's this whole struggle of herself, trying to get out of herself. And I think the end is just her. We just wanted her to get a different exit of her life than she had in real life.
And then also the dance that plays during the end credits, how did that come to be? As I understand it, it was not shot with the intention of it playing during the credits.
Yes, so that's typical. That's just me. That was just, we knew we had one roll of film, because it's shot on film. We had one roll of film, and the camera woman, she said one day, maybe what if we would have a moment where we could see her like at night and no one sees her and she's doing something like maybe dancing, and then I love dancing, so I was like, oh yes, please. And I do it after work, I don't care, I just want to dance. So we knew that we couldn't put it on a schedule because they would kill us if we would add another scene when we were already so tight on schedule and budget. So we didn't tell anyone, but we knew, me, the camera woman, and Marie, and the day she told people, and we chose a day where it wasn't too full. So we just added it, and we knew we have one roll of film, and she pushed a button, and I went, and I danced. But before this, I had the idea of going to the makeup people and saying, do you have a mustache somewhere? And then I put some glue in it, and I picked it here. And then, you know, it was a surprise really for the director and the camera woman. I just wanted to surprise them, and also I had this strong intuition that it would do something, and so I just did it, and now it's there.
And the project really originates with you. You had previously made a movie with Marie Kreutzer, and the two of you wanted to work together again, and you suggested doing something on the Empress Elisabeth. And I know you've talked about how you first sort of learned about her story when you were a teenager, when you were 15 or so, but what was it about her story that spoke to you now? Why were you interested in why did you suggest an Empress Elisabeth story to Marie?
I'm very intuitive, and I think it was a lot of it was intuition. But if I look at it now, I know what it was. And I think I felt related to something I could feel in the story of this woman, even not knowing, even just feeling it from behind the curtain. Some sort of melancholia or depression or sadness coming from something we all have today a lot, which is the alienation of yourself. You know, we've come to a point in our society where we moved away from love so far that we don't even know who we are. We have no relation to our bodies, we have no relation to our sexuality, to who we are, especially women, you know. I mean, for hundreds of years, women were taught to behave and to hide everything that was female and hide their sexuality, hide their emotions, that, you know, having a period is like filthy or something you have to behave as if you were sick. And this is now like just a story we write in books, but that was actually true for hundreds of years. And even if we are now, that's where we come from. And even I, who grew up in this like free hippie house, where everyone was free and my mother taught me to be free and climb on trees, still going to school, society taught me that I had to please, that I had to be pretty, that I had to be okay if someone grabs my ass just because, you know, that's what it is, when it was not okay, and I never felt okay with any of it. And I think not feeling okay with it made me feel close to her in some sort of struggle that I didn't understand at the time, but now I do. But I think that's really where it came from.
Because really from very early in the story, the scene when she faints, you know, people are criticizing her to her face, like how she looks and about her weight. And did you know these things about her story? Like how did sort of you come to connect with those aspects of her story, you think?
So I read the biography when I was 15, so I knew how obsessed she was with these things, like her weight and the riding and the fitness instruments. She had one of the first fitness instruments ever built, you know, anyway. But I remember thinking, but why? Because in the book I would read, it would be more like, oh, how cool, oh, you know, this woman, and she was so like. And then I thought, but why was this woman like that? Why was she doing this? Why? And that what started me being curious. And that everyone talked about her is something I knew, but I really found out more doing the research, and especially that's something that it happened in like 2 stages, because one was like everything in my life more intuitive. Then I came here to show and present and do Q&As for Phantom Thread. And when I came back doing that, I was very confused. I didn't know what happened. Like, what? Like people talking about me, and that's just so weird. So I went home, and that's when I had the script in my letterbox. And I thought, oh, now I can really understand her. What it means, you know, if people look at you, even if it's on a completely different scale, because she, at 16, she was, you know, they would hand out little hand-drawn pictures of her, which is like the old school Instagram, I would say. Really, and they would hand them out and saying, this is the most beautiful woman of Europe. But that must have been traumatizing, you know, and everyone knew her and knew how she looked and said that she's the most beautiful, which then she had to answer to.
But at the same time, it's so striking that like they didn't want her to do anything more. They sort of refused her any greater role, and I mean the way that they minimized her, it seems like it's no surprise that she, you know, genuinely is like shrinking herself with the corset and her diet. And is that something you recognize for yourself? Like maybe the kind of roles that you get offered as an actress don't actually sort of, you know, allow you to explore your own experiences as fully as you might want to?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think I'm very lucky, because I'm more intuitive, and so I've energetically find my people. So I've been very lucky in my life, and like to speak of Phantom Thread, that was exactly the same experience. I felt totally free and respected, and I could do it the way I want to. But in general, yes. Like in general, I do have, this movie is kind of also my answer, my personal, private answer to what it means being a woman and being an actress. And people expecting you to look a certain way or behave a certain way, or, oh, now you're an actress, so you have to do your homework really well to prove everyone that you did well, which I think is boring. You know, when we do our homework, I do my homework, but then I want to play. And when I do a movie, I invite you to play. I don't invite you to watch my homework. So I do feel that in movies in general, maybe, even if I've been quite lucky. And this was one of the movies where I could, also being part of the whole inventing process, I could really do it my way. And also show a woman who's not likable, you know, like, I remember doing it and thinking, oh my God, they will hate you for this. Because it's the opposite of what they tell you to do in acting school, for instance. You know, you have to please and you have to catch the audience, keep the audience, not disturb them, you know, not put things that they can't explain, like a vacuum cleaner. Why is a vacuum cleaner here and not in the other shot? you know, or many things like that, you know. Really, I remember doing it thinking, I'm letting the audience down, but I trusted the audience to be more intelligent and to follow, or to not follow if you don't want to, but so it's something that they can really choose of watching, like a piece of art where you go, I feel like really going there and watching this, you know.
And then when you first proposed the idea to Marie of doing an Empress Elizabeth movie, she didn't want to do it at first. And what changed her mind? Like, did you have to convince her?
No, I couldn't convince her. At first, she really thought I'm crazy. Because to her, she grew up in Austria, and there Sissi is a pure merchandise. She's on every cup, on every tote bag, on every piece of cake. So to her, it was the most shallow, stupid, superficial thing you could ever do as a movie. And she was like, oh, no. And then we parted ways, and secretly, without telling me, she went to the archive. And then when she went to the archive, what she says is she would read about her and find these little acts of rebellion. You know, like there's little known. It's not like today. There's no footage, you know, in video, but there's things that are written down. Like she would go to these dinners, sit down, but not eat, or she would smoke, which at the time was absolutely not allowed for a woman to do. Many of these things, or she was asking the right to raise her children. At first, I think the first child she had at 15 or 16, and they took it away from her, and the second one as well, and which was something they would do, so she wouldn't have to deal with it, and also it's kind of filthy, you know, to breastfeed and like, oh. So they took the children away, and she then claimed later on, when she was older, the right to raise her own children, and all these things were like, they may seem small, but for the time it was rebellious to do that. And that's what she found, and why she then wrote the script and sent it to me, and with the copy, the hard copy of the script was a postcard, and it said, well, I guess you were right. Yes, the screenplay. Yeah.
And now you mentioned Fans with Thread, and you've been really open talking about the fact that, you know, you purposely sort of stepped back from the career that was sort of being offered to you after the success of that film. What was the thing that you didn't want to have happen? Like what?
Well, it's not, I mean, that sounds very intelligent and conscious, and I'm not that person. No, it was more intuitive. It was just, it was not like something was offered to me, but I could feel something. I could feel some sort of attention or drawn to me, or some sort of, oh, there she is. This is the girl from Phantoms, right? When really I'm just me. And this to me felt so alien, so weird, that I had to just, things like not having an agent here, or not working here for a while. That's what I did. But it was not that I had like all these offers, and I went like, no, I don't want the offers. It was not. It was less conscious. It was more just reactive. And I remember throwing away my phone. I didn't have a phone for half a year. So I don't know. Maybe I was offered something. I don't know. No, I don't know. I went to Portugal to surf, and didn't have a phone. So.
But now, do you see a connection between Alma, your character in Fans with Thread, and Empress Elizabeth?
Well, a little bit, you know, it feels like Alma here goes wild. Like she really, like I feel like Alma always wanted to do this, but she couldn't. You know, a little bit like, yeah, it made me think of it somehow. But also because Marie and Paul have kind of similar ways of working, when even they're, of course, very different. They come from different culture and background and so on, and they're man and woman, but they both have this understanding of the work of an actor being something that is unique and that you need to create a space for. You know, it's like it's about creating rituals and making a film set almost like a sacred space that you hold, and you go, okay, now we're going to do this either crazy or beautiful or special thing, and now we go. And it's not just we go, we do this, I'm on my phone, and blah, 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 blah. What are you doing next? I don't know. Yeah, okay, action. You know, but it's like, okay, everyone now do this. It's very simple. It's actually what you would think how people would do it, but somehow it's very difficult to do. And Marie and Paul both hold that space for actors, and that's what does the whole trick, you know. That because then you feel that it's about you and about your art, and that you are allowed to be who you are, and you're allowed to fly, you know. And then you film it and edit it, of course.
Because when you talk about being free, what does that mean to you?
Well, I flow. I'm flowing in my creative process. You know, I think it's the same for a musician. You flow with your intuition, you flow with what comes to you. And you go with something you don't know what it's going to be. It's like stepping into the dark. It's like falling into nothing. You don't know what's going to come, but you go. And you go with something that is part of you, and it's in a dialogue between you and whatever surrounds you at this moment. And it's like flowing, I think, which is the opposite of what sometimes people do when it's more rational. It's like, well, this is what we do, and this is what it should be, and that's what it should turn out to. And I'm an actor, so now I'm going to portray this person like this, and because I'm an actor, I'm going to do it this and this way, and you know. But then it becomes about me, and the opposite is like this flowing thing.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but for your part in Corsage, you learned Hungarian, you learned how to fence, you learned ice swimming, and then you already knew how to ride a horse, but you learned how to ride side saddle. Am I missing anything? That's a lot.
Fencing?
Yes. And now, is that something that you like about acting? Is sort of being able to kind of like dip into these worlds and endeavors that otherwise you probably wouldn't learn how to fence or learn Hungarian.
Yeah.
Or ice swimming. And do you like the fact that like acting gives you the opportunity to do those kind of things?
Yeah, I think I'm just very curious as a person. So everything you tell me, yeah, I would do. Because it's like, oh, I have never done this, no, whatever. Climb the Eiffel Tower, yeah. But I was also trying to understand, because it's a very complex person, and it's someone that is not, you can read everything you want about her, but you'll never get an answer, because I think she didn't know who she was. So people didn't know who she was. So doing all of this stuff really helped me to get closer to just a taste of the world she would evolve in, you know. And one thing I did, by the way, that you didn't mention, I also took a coach. She's called Jane Gibson. She does like movement, more like at the London Opera and stuff like that. And that was for me very important, because I wanted to find a way to understand what it would mean to be cut in half. Because I think that's where a lot of it comes from. It's like when you wear a corset, not only is it painful, but it cuts you in half. So it divides your mind from your body, your lower part from your upper part. Your libido basically is cut off. When you have it still, but it feels like not part of you. So your sexuality becomes something strange. Everything becomes, strange. And so working with this movement coach, I understood I wanted to find some sort of movement that would be almost as if she's not touching the ground. And of course I was, but in my mind I was trying to walk like someone who's not touching the ground, because everything gets like so like thin. So all this preparation really only was interesting to know kind of what it would have been like to be in her shoes. But it's just a tiny part, if I would have wanted, it's impossible. I would have needed a year of preparation or whatever. So this was just a part, but main thing for me was to understand her pain.
Because given the themes of the movie, it feels a little superficial to be asking this, but like, you have so many great wigs and dresses and hats in the movie. Like, do those things help you in your performance?
Yeah. I was asked if the jewelry helped me. I don't know. I think this person was more just the jewelry obsessed person, but yeah, because I didn't know the question really. If anything, it helped me understand the weight of the jewelry, the weight of the hair, the time it took to make that hair, and all of this stuff. And the corset, you know, people tell me, oh, but the corset is great, it helps you too. I hate it so much. So I want to, I don't want to say it that it helped me, even if maybe, I mean, that's a movie now, you know, it was really a mistake, and I admit it, it was a mistake, and I did it because I was stupid, and I thought, I want to wear that corset because she did, so I understand. But I didn't think that, you know, if you do it for a movie, you start at 5 in the morning, and you do it for 12 hours, which is just not even bearable. You can't, it's just so painful, and you can't breathe, you can't eat, you can't feel anything. So I was always sad, but I could never express the sadness. You can't, I don't know why, but just emotions, they just get stuck. But because it was my own fault, I thought I have to stick with it now and just go until the end, which I did. So I tried to just take a humble approach of saying, well, you know, Vicky, you called in this ghost, so you kind of have to live with it now. But I wouldn't do it again, and it was really a mistake, actually. But talking of in what way these things help the acting, I don't know if they help the acting. I think they help something that has to do with the movie. But the acting as such, I wouldn't say, because acting is about, you know, being with your emotions and knowing and feeling at the same time. With the corset, it was very hard, I found.
And then, can you talk a little bit for you, what the movie's relationship to history and the true story of Empress Elisabeth is? I think about the music and the fact that it's more contemporary, and there's a couple of modern songs that are sung in the movie itself. For you, what is kind of the relationship of the movie and the way that you're telling the story of Empress Elisabeth to, you know, the historical record?
You know what? I feel like I'm going to annoy you all now, maybe. I would apologize. I'm not part of the fast-moving world. But I'm going to read something, because I'm reading it right now, and I read it before coming here, and then I thought, oh wow, this is really about what we're talking. And it's about how we have grown apart from what we used to be. So I think that is really what, for me, is the relation to the movie. You know, that we are stuck in a time where we know something else is coming, something else must come. We're completely stuck. We don't know what's coming. And she was the same. She was stuck. She knew something was coming. She was ahead of the time. Yet she was completely stuck. She knew that monarchy was going to die. But she was stuck in a world where people still thought, oh, that's the world order, you know. There's God and there's the king, and that's what it is. But she already knew it would change. And our life changed from then on forever. And we have not yet evolved really. I mean, we have the internet and stuff like that, but that's just a continuation of some mathematical, you know, code. But really, there was that time, then it changed, and then it's our time, which goes until now, and we don't know when. But we have the same feeling of something needs to change. And I think this is a really old book, but it's called Daughters of Copper Women. It's Anne Cameron. I think people might know it because apparently it was a bestseller in this country at some point. And it talks about how the white man arrived in, like, this is the west coast, like the northwest coast in Canada, with the native people, you know, and she uses all the old tellings of these people to talk about something which has happened to men and women. It's based on the womanhood, but it concerns the both of us. And she writes it like this. I mean, she says what they were. She uses the old sagas. Yeah. And then the new men arrived. And the new men are the ones with the boats and so on. Men who never talked to women, never ate with women, never slept with women, never laughed with women. Men who frowned on singing and dancing, on laughter and love. Men who claimed the society of women was a society of witches. thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Instead of being raised and educated by women who told them the truth about their bodies, the girls were taken from their villages and put in schools where they were taught to keep their breasts bound, to hide their arms and legs, never to look a brother openly in the eye, but to look down at the ground as if ashamed of something. Instead of learning that once a month their bodies would become sacred, they were taught that their bodies would become filthy. Instead of going to the waiting house, they were taught that they were sick and must bandage themselves and act as if they were not well. They were taught the waves and surgings of their bodies were sinful and must never be indulged or enjoyed. By the time the girls were allowed home to their villages, their minds were so poisoned, their spirits so damaged, they were not eligible to join the society of women. The boys were taken away too and taught that women were filthy, sinful creatures who would tempt a man away from his true spiritual path. They were taught that women had no opinion that counted, no mind to be honored, no purpose other than to serve men. In less than a generation, the world turned upside down. And I like how she says the world turned upside down, because it's not about saying whose fault, whatever. It's just, it's a collective thing that happened, you know. And of course it has a lot to do with church and other institutions. But I think that is really, for me, the historical connection to this movie. And that's why we break free from so many things, and we do stuff that is unruly to do, you know. We mix times that we're not at the time. We put a vacuum cleaner. I point my, you know, I show my finger. I do things that are not to the time, but I think we do so to give people the feeling that we are allowed to think out of this vehicle that we have been put in. Because we are all, you know, driving this vehicle. I'm in the vehicle of the actor, you're the vehicle of the one who asks the questions, they're the vehicle of the one who listens. And we all have to behave according to it, and I hope no one will complain or judge me for not being the way I should be, or not looking the way I should look. I have to be more pretty, I have to be younger, I shouldn't have, you know, des rides, like wrinkles, I shouldn't, you know, all these things, and we are obsessed with it every day, instead of just being who we are. And I think that's why we made this movie, to show the disbalance that happens if you put yourself in that corset, and how important it is that we have to get out of that corset.
And then we're going to be showing Bergman Island up next, and I want to be sure to ask you, as you sort of explore kind of the world of women in your roles, is it meaningful for you that, you know, working with Mia Hansen-Love, working with Marie Kreutzer, like, do you feel like when you're working with female directors that they're sort of like understanding what you're trying to get at a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the female. But I would say yes. I mean, that's the beauty of it, you know. I can talk to a man who's more female than a woman, you know. But it's about working with people who are a little more intuitive and sensitive about life in general, I think, you know. And it's true that even in Bergman Island, it's also about a woman who has to find her own way, who has to, who am I as a creator? If I'm a creator, if I'm an artist, what makes me an artist? Is it my process? Is it the way I work? Is it having a certain routine and being very clear with this? Or do I have a different routine? And do I have to trust my own way of doing things to find my story and to find my art?
And then just the last thing I want to ask you is, you, in all your performances, have such a great, just this free, creative energy that it feels very spontaneous and just alive. Like what's happening in the moment is something that's just really happening right there. And for you, where does that energy come from? Like, do you kind of like, do you have a plan for your performances? Are you genuinely sort of like in the moment for every scene? Like, where does that just alive quality that you bring to all of your performances, for you, where does that come from?
For me, I'm just me. I'm just alive. I just don't take it away. You know, I just don't go and manipulate myself. I'm just myself, and you take it or leave it. And I'm alive, so my characters are alive.
And with that, we're going to wrap up our